Well, hi everyone, and welcome back. Hope you're having a wonderful start to your week and had a good holiday last week. I was just kind of noticing today about how much repetition we've experienced as we've read through the Bible. I noticed that in part because we're repeating the Psalms, and that's our own doing, right? We've chosen this plan that reads through the Psalms twice. Hope you're going to be blessed by that. But we're also starting a new part of the Bible. We're reading through the book of Chronicles now, First and Second Chronicles, and we'll see that there's a lot of repetition in that book in what we just heard in the books of First and Second Kings. We've read through the Gospels, four different tellings of the life of Jesus, lots of repetition there. And of course, now we're finishing up Acts, which we've talked about how Acts is in many ways a retelling of the story of Jesus. It's the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, now kind of played out not through Jesus, but through Jesus's people, right? Those earliest disciples. And so many of the stories in the book of Acts sound awfully similar to the stories that we read in the Gospels. The Bible is full of repetition, and I don't know what you think about that. Some of you might be thinking, oh boy, here it comes again. Do we really have to go through Chronicles when we just finished Kings? I mean, didn't we hear all of this already? And I get that. Some of you also, maybe though, have been noticing some of the differences as these stories are repeated and retold. And maybe you notice that in the Gospels, the way that Matthew tells a story is a little bit different than how Mark or Luke or John tells the story. And sometimes might be wondering, well, what actually happened? Is it the way that Mark told it or the way that Luke told it? Maybe you notice some of these differences in the book of Acts. Again, some of the stories are very similar. Think of Paul, right? Here was a man who was dragged before the Roman authorities, found innocent by them, actually, and yet because of some Jewish opposition, he's shipped off where he'll meet his eventual demise outside of Jerusalem in a place called Rome. And many of the details of that story sound like Jesus, right? Brought before Pilate, the Roman governor, found innocent by Pilate. He washes his hands, and yet because of the cries of some religious people, Jesus is eventually sentenced to death. And so you'll notice some similarities in the retelling of these stories, and yet also some differences too. And uh, I think this is because, and maybe we've talked about this before, maybe we haven't, that the Bible is meant to be read as meditation literature. It's meant to be read and reread. You're meant to hear these stories that are repeated and to think about them and to kind of chew them over, right? To mull on them, to let them kind of percolate in your brain and in your heart and in your mind. And so when we read the repetitious stories in the Gospels, for example, we're meant to or we are given some things to kind of chew on and to think over. I think about some of the teachings of Jesus that are repeated throughout the Gospels. Jesus had a lot to say about money, if you didn't notice. And in some places, they'll say the money is the root of all evil, that you can't serve both God and money. You're going to love the one and hate the other, but you can't serve two masters. And in other places, we know that it is because of money, because of the money that some women had that they generously gave, that Jesus was able to do his ministry. So which one is it, right? Do we get rid of our money because it's the root of all evil and you can't serve God and money and you're going to love the one and hate the other? Or do you use your money wisely to bless people and to grow the kingdom of God and continue the work of Jesus? Which one is it? And the point is, right, that it's both. And this is where we begin to see the depth of the Bible as we read and reread and hear these stories over and over again. What God is showing us is that there's a depth to Him, to His love, to His truth, to the ways of the kingdom. And so as you move forward here and as you reread the Psalms and as you work your way through Chronicles, right, some of it you're going to wonder, why am I reading this again? What's the point? But I hope you take it as an opportunity to meditate, to sit and ponder the things of God, to see the depth of what He has to say. The faith we have in Jesus is simple on the one hand, right? Even a child can understand the most important things about Jesus, but it's not simplistic, right? There's a beautiful depth to it that as we grow and mature in Jesus, we begin to see more and more and more about just how good He is. So, again, I know it can be hard when you wonder, didn't I hear all this just a few weeks ago? But again, I hope that you take it as an opportunity to gaze upon Jesus, to meditate on his word and his truth, and to grow in true wisdom as we hear these stories again. Well, God bless you all. Keep sending in your questions. Remember, there's a new link to the questions. I'll put that at the bottom of this email again, and I hope to catch up with you all again soon.